We'll call the meeting to order. Did anyone want to open with a prayer? If not, I can do that. Heavenly Father, we ask that you would bless this time here we have this evening. Ask that the decisions that are made wisely and that we have a profitable time together in Jesus' name.
Amen.
A motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Whalen, second by Hart. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Review and approval of the meeting minutes. Any questions on those?
Motion. The section on my computer decided tonight is a great time to reboot. The section on the executive session. Is that okay the way it's written? What's a little more specific than what I was anticipating reading there. That's the. We're talking about the executive.
Oh,
meeting
minutes.
minutes.
I'm sorry.
I'm saying, Mr. Brad, that you thought it needed to be more specific or less?
Well, I didn't know if it was correct. I mean, it's correct, but it should be stated quite as specifically as it is.
Is there proprietary info in it?
No, I don't think, I mean,
It's
I'll
okay.
read how it says, Mr. Whalen made a motion to executive session, Ms. Baker seconded the motion carried with a voice vote. Mr. Whalen made a motion to accept the offer as presented. Mr. Hart seconded the motion carried with a voice vote of 4.
There's slot 2 and slot 5.
Oh, you mean?
Oh, in the approval of offer made on lot 2 and lot 5. Gotcha.
Sorry. Like I
don't
said,
think we really give away anything. I don't know.
as long as that's okay, that's fine. I just was gonna call it up for a second.
See what ice cream does to people?
The sugar high.
That was the way it was on the agenda, which is why it's worded that way in the minutes. So
Okay.
as long as setting the price is the part that takes it to executive session. So
Got it.
we're okay with describing the parcel.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve as presented then.
Yes, I so moved.
Motion by Brent, second by Hart. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries as well. We have claims this evening totaling $154.29.
Expected.
Motion to approve the claim.
So we'll,
Second by Whalen, second by Hunt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Comment? Seeing none, we will move on to Andrea and Greater Pittsburgh Partnership.
Good evening.
Good
Evening.
Well, in the time that I was here last, I would say in relationship to what was on the executive session, working with the owner and the owner's representative, getting them information about utilities near the site, actually coordinating a meeting with them tomorrow. George and I have been back and forth a number of times, just kind of keeping each other updated and in the loop on kind of the negotiations going back and forth. In other news, continue to meet with other businesses. Had a tour and meeting with Burner in the last 30 days, as well as Honeywell. They had their second tour. There will be another opportunity for that in August, and then another one in the fourth quarter. Met with the YMCA Youth Children's Center. A lot of conversations around childcare, availability of childcare, and that impact to our employers. So much so that in next week, I was going to say in 2 weeks, next week, we'll have another HR roundtable, and we will have representatives from our 3 largest daycare providers meet with employers or human resources from area employers to kind of talk about this issue. The YMCA Child Care Center, Open Bible, and Amity Daycare there's obviously other childcare providers within Stephenson County, but those are probably the 3 largest centers we have. All of them have long wait lists, and we know this is impacting return to work for new mothers, as well as just getting placement so that other people can enter the workforce. So we'll have a good conversation, and there will be, I'm sure, some action steps coming forward. Also, something to keep in mind. The YCC, the YMCA, the YCC is the Youth Child Care Center that has an agreement with the YMCA. They're part of that. They currently operate on Highland's campus. Highland is going through a process with kind of a master planning exercise and looking at their sports facility. They have had a long-term lease agreement with the YMCA and a separate lease agreement with the YCC. It's likely in 2 years or so that the YCC will need to find a new home. So we have had conversations with that organization, looking at existing facilities, looking at potential development of a new building somewhere within Freeport or the outskirts of Freeport and what makes sense. Again, a lot of moving parts here and far from a final decision. But I'll keep you up to date. We hosted a webinar with the Illinois Manufacturers Association. They have an employee training investment program. And we invited local manufacturers to participate. This can help a local manufacturer kind of defer the cost of this reimbursement program. And it can, there's a variety of training often used for OSHA training, but it can qualify for training as English as second language. So we had a webinar. It was low attendance, unfortunately, but we were able to record that and then send it out to all of our manufacturers. Thank you to those who could participate in Region 1 Planning Council about the broadband and fiber infrastructure planning meeting. I didn't quite know what to expect either when I went into that meeting. And it was kind of the meeting beginning all of the other meetings. I think it was setting the stage for what they're planning on doing. I think there was some good feedback we had representatives from the county, from the city, from different business sectors, all in the room, many of which who had some familiarity with Arrow and their loop of fiber within Freeport. So I think that there's a kind of a mapping exercise of really understanding where fiber currently exists, and then the other engagement from our business community, understanding where it should go to enable future development. So I think there will be more meetings and more engagement forthcoming. I don't have any dates or any next steps at this point to share with you.
Is that available, that webinar? Is it something we can?
The Illinois manufacturer, the one that we
one that you
hosted.
had, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I can send you the information if you'd like. I've already sent it out to all of our manufacturers, but if you're interested, yeah.
Could you, why don't you send it to the whole board?
Are you talking about the R1 meeting about fiber, or are you talking about the manufacturers one?
The fiber.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry, I mistook what you were saying. No, I don't think that meeting was recorded.
Oh, okay.
I think that there were slides and follow-up that I can send to Georgia and she can distribute,
Okay.
but the meeting was not recorded.
Well,
So
that'd be great. I need
Sure.
to educate myself on
Sure.
that issue.
Also kind of in the human resources field, we have put together and crafted a wage survey. So this was other comments that we received from area employers, really understanding what were low, median, and high wages for a lot of universal positions that are almost found at any business, regardless of sector. So we crafted the survey. We've sent that out to our HR list and are asking for responses. We'll kind of tabulate that data and then report that back out. Everything will remain confidential. No businesses' names will be used there, but I think this helps helps the employer understand how are they competitive. Where do they line up against the other people who are employing, let's say, a custodian or someone in accounts receivable. So more forthcoming. I think we have till about the end of the month to get those survey responses back, but then we'll talk about that at the July HR roundtable meeting. We continue to work with businesses around Enterprise Zone, getting applications in. We're also working with Ross Beemeyer and his new development. There is a pocket of land that he's directly adjacent to. He owns it now. That is not in the Enterprise Zone. We're working on an application to get that included. That will take a number of months to submit, but we're at the beginning stages, but that will be beneficial to his development near Raptors. Had a meeting with the Quad City Regional Economic Development Authority. So from an appointee, I've been appointed from Stephenson County Board, by the board, to sit on that Regional Economic Development Board. What WSERDA does is they can do a lot of different things, but the two main things that they can do, they're a bonding authority, so that they can issue bonds for capital improvement projects, oftentimes in the healthcare or the education sector, to help with, and housing as well, to help with the cost of construction, as well as they can issue enterprise zones. That's not necessarily something we need here since we have our own enterprise zone, but there was a request for a project for a bond that would be in Freeport. It was from a housing developer who would be redeveloping an existing development, Lincoln Towers. And so that request for that bond was approved. I think everything will be said and done in terms of paperwork signed probably towards the end of August. The project right now looks to be about 10.5 million. It wouldn't be an addition, but it would be a lot of renovation to that building, which I believe is currently completely leased. And maybe construction would start before the end of the year. At this point, that's as much as I know about the project. We continue to receive a number of requests for information from Intersect Illinois, and we've been able to respond to 4 of them in the last 30 days. One was a request for Millrace Crossing. We were able to submit. The other 3 were a request from mainly manufacturing and sector. A lot of it has to do with solar or alternative energy or electrical vehicle component. I'm seeing more of these requests ask for existing buildings as opposed to greenfield site development right now. I think that has a lot to do with the cost of construction being high. We'll see how that goes. Again, we try to respond to anything that I would say, have most of the boxes checked from, knowing that if we can respond to a lot of the needs that the company has, we might not be able to respond to everything, but we're still in the ball game. Unfortunately, we got news that the potential project that was going to move forward at the visitor center is most likely not. The use for that building would change. They were needing to put a sprinkler system in because it's well and septic. That would have required some underground tanks as well as fire pump. And the cost of that just made it too prohibitive. So the building is still on the market. I have followed up with some other people who were interested. So hopefully, fingers crossed, there will be something, some movement there. We just submitted at the end of last week a grant to the U.S. Bank Foundation for $10,000. We would use this money, the dollars, the grant opportunity we have has around the category of kind of business startup, business support services. What we've submitted for is to continue our base camp program, which would start the first quarter of next year. Again, that's all around entrepreneurship, business startup. We had 12 people go through that program last year. Georgia was an awesome pitch competition judge at the end of that. So we would use some of that money for the cost of that program if awarded. Looking ahead, we hope to present to the county board July 18th, if that's okay, to present the second quarter report. And we continue to schedule business retention visits with employers. I would be, I would always say that business after hours invite you to that, which of course all of you are welcome to come to, but that is the same night as the county board meeting. But that will be at Ensign Jade, which is I think between here and Pearl City on Dublin Road. That's a new event center, barn and event center. So I've not seen the property myself, but the pictures look beautiful.
What's the name of it?
Ensign Jade. Yeah.
Could you back up? I didn't
Sure.
catch the name of the bonding authority. And I know it's in our notes from what you,
Sure. Quad City Regional Economic Development Authority.
And are we part of that in some way, shape, or form?
Correct. Yes. So the Stephenson County is Joe Davis, Ogle, Lee, Whiteside.
Okay.
It kind of, we meet in the Moline or the Quad City Airport is where the meetings are at. And so think about it, if you spread out from the Quad Cities going as far north as us
Mhm.
and just kind of bleeds over. I do believe Winnebago might have just been added because they were not part of a regional economic development authority at that time. So any other questions I can help answer?
I just wanted to say, I thought that you did a great job with the State of the Union, if you will.
I
I
appreciate
thought
that.
Scott did as well.
Yeah.
The handouts were, I thought, really very helpful.
Mhm.
I'd like to mention that only the county presented those.
Mhm.
You know, those were, I think you had handouts too, is there? I think you some of
No,
those-
I think we just helped distribute yours.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I thought it was very good. I know there was been some pushback on it being public or private. I see both sides of that. You know, I think the answer may be, I thought it was such a good informative thing that it would be good to maybe take that on the road at some point if you can. Just a thought. Again,
Sure,
it
sure.
was very well done. So thank you both. And Georgia.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And kind of, we've received some feedback and I've had some other people reach out to me around that not being a public meeting.
Mhm.
And I think we always walk the line of what's a member benefit
Mhm.
and what is open and available and free to the public. And so we are a member business-based organization.
Mhm.
So, we always need to think about how we're providing value to our business membership. And it was really, the audience was geared towards that as opposed to just a public meeting. And I think that it was said in the meeting, and Chairman Helms did a good job of saying, asking people to get involved, make
Mhm.
themselves aware, educate themselves. And I, as I spoke to a city council person earlier today, there's public meetings that happen multiple times during the month. You just need to show up and you can hear what's going on. So, but I appreciate the feedback.
It's good.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
On to zoning. Thank you.
For the month of May, $33,632.60 was deposited. 29,200 of that was, excuse me, a solar, a solar permit fee. Now it just slipped the top of my head on which one it's going to be. And then the total to date to the general fund is $58,106.16. Nicole held the office down again while I was out on medical leave for my right knee. Her time was spent preparing for 3 upcoming hearings in July, fielding phone calls, completing occupancy certificates, and building permits, and whatever else I'm in the office. While I was out, I worked from home reviewing our code to see if any revisions were necessary. I did find several of our newer codes were not included on our website, and quite a few are outdated that we're going to have to revise. Building permits are still on the slow side. We've received many calls on, do I need a permit? Do I not need a permit? So hopefully this is going to be a good sign as to what's to come. Solar, for residential solar permits, they're increasing weekly. So that's all I have.
And those just individual one you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Anything else? I did not attend the Soil and Water Conservation District meeting this month, so I have no report there. Go to you, Mr. Helms. I know you had some information on the trails.
Yes. So last meeting, which was in May, bids were open for work to be done on 3 trail bridges on Jane Addams Trail. All 3 bids exceeded the estimated project cost by 170%.
Oh, my.
The engineer is reviewing the details of the bids and will consult with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources for options. The funding for those repairs is provided through a grant with the IDNR. Potential options could be rebidding the project, which we don't feel very confident that will turn in any different results. And the other option is to reduce the scope of the project, which obviously probably won't include 3 trail bridges, just a fewer number. If you have not been out to the West Block area, just north of town, they have regraded the gravel, which is there, and they've also put in a new paved entry drive, which is pretty nice. They have turned the water on. They've also installed a bike repair station, and I do not know what a bike repair station is, but it's there. Go break your bike and see what. I did email all of you a few minutes ago the financials. We have a meeting on Thursday of this week at noon at the Park District. Public is welcome. Got nothing better to do, come on over. It's a good time.
And that's the, rec and trails or?
Yes, Jane Abstract Commission.
Okay. I do have some information from Black Hawk Hills Regional Council. We've had some concerns about them in the past, but they have got their 401c3 issues corrected, and they're looking back at some of their previous work just to double check to make sure that things are, all the i's have been dotted and the t's have been crossed, but that's looking really good. A lot of we used to hear a lot about I-fiber through Black Hawk Hills and what was going on there. Black Hawk Hills just sold I-fiber for $40 million. And that's supposed to get divided equally between the 4 entities. That would be us, City of Rockford, NIU, and one other one that I can't remember right now.
You did say 40 million.
I did say 40.
Just checking.
Another ISP. But that doesn't mean we get 4 or 10 million. It means that somewhere along the way, we get some money that'll be available grant wise and that sort of thing.
How is it distributed? I mean, does anyone know?
Well, those dollars, that 40 million is supposed to be distributed equally between the 4 entities. But I don't know exactly how much comes out of that 40 million for all of the legwork that was done up until this point to get it to where it's at. I can't. Do you have any other information on that?
I don't know if they have any existing expenditures or any liabilities that would have to be paid before.
I don't either.
I'm not sure.
Would that be the council that would have those debts and expenses that we pay off the top or?
Well, that would be part of, yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's great news. I think.
Well, I think they're excited about that, and then they're looking at some ways to distribute that money through the grant process. As far as that goes. I just wanted, as far as the chairman's report, on my side, I don't really have anything except to thank all of you for being involved, and especially with all that's going on with Greater Freeport Partnership, and that I just think that this is the committee that should be excited about where we're going, and this is the one that we're starting to see some activity on, and I'm excited about that. So turn it over to you, Mr. Helms. Do you have anything else you want to add as chairman?
I believe so.
Moving on to new business then, let Beth talk to the next 2 issues as far as the code amendment.
Okay, the first one is to add brewery distillery to the B3 zoning district. Well, actually, it's the description of that. We had some inquiries previously as to where would a distillery or brewery be allowed in the county. Currently, it is only allowed for a home occupation special use. That limits it greatly. So this, if we're putting it into the B3's this district, anywhere that is zoned B3, they could just come in, start up their business and go from there.
Any questions? I need a motion in a second, and then I'll get a question.
I will move to approve this as presented.
Motion by Whalen, second by Baker. Any questions?
I do have a question. I'm just curious. Who writes this? Is this written by by a service or is
No.
it?
Our office does. The zoning office does.
The
We-
zoning office.
Yes, we reach out to other counties, see what they have,
Mhm.
and go from there.
And
A lot of counties have their state's attorney's office write their codes,
Mhm.
not with us.
Do they review it or anything? Does Carl review it or?
To be honest, if we want it in a timely manner, no.
Okay.
If it's approved out of committee, it'll be reviewed before it goes to the full.
Oh, it will be reviewed by the state's
If
attorney.
it's approved out of the committee.
If it's approved here. The only thing I just had, it's just another question. I'm gonna vote for it. It says that no loading or distribution activities shall take place outside of an enclosed building. Oh, I'm sorry, it's got between 11 and 6, so that's overnight. There was something else I had a question on here. Yeah, I was probably just mistaken. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I will just say I had a constituent tell me about, one of the facilities out in the Cedarville that's having bands after certain hours until midnight and stuff. So it's seeing 11 PM on there. I had talked to the sheriff about that as well. Appreciate you put that up. I think that seems like a good medium time.
Sure.
But
We got
if
kids.
that one is a home use, special use permit, that part of the zoning code doesn't have this 11 to 6 in.
Correct. I know what you're speaking of. Can I address that real quick or should we wait?
No.
Since Stephenson County, I don't know what the sheriff said, Stephenson County does not have a noise ordinance. And unfortunately, we do not want a noise ordinance because then if we have a noise ordinance, then farmers
Right.
that are out in their field at 3 AM with their tractors will get shut
I
down.
think this covers it.
This does, yes. I wish there was something that we could do with the outdoor beer gardens or the outdoor establishments like you're speaking of, that we had, a set time.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, that type of noise isn't, I mean, when you got a band playing, that's,
it's loud.
I mean, I think that's what the person I talked to, that was her main concern. It's like,
Are we still having the issue with the one on the river?
shh,
Thank you.
no, we're not. Last year, no either.
Could you amend that, as Steve said, because that's tied to the residential rather than this?
I think what she just said though is that we don't want to do that.
No, we don't want to do an overall
Right.
noise ordinance, but maybe just specifically in this.
But then if I've got to go out there at 3 AM with my tractor, are you gonna make me shut it off?
Yes.
No.
Yeah,
You know what you're saying, the distillery brewery.
just to specific.
Right, I
I'm
can look
saying
into,
specifically
see what our code
I'm
for
just curious.
special use has.
Yeah.
And we can always look into changing that as well, which it does make sense to, put a time frame on that.
Right.
That was something that was.
If that's a
Right.
problem,
Yeah.
there have only been a few complaints about Steve and his tractor. So we can put that off.
Right.
It's the cows here.
Oh, that's.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Into item 2.
Okay, this is just adding this subsection to B3. Since it's not in there, we have to add it.
I would move to, accept this ordinance as presented.
Second.
Motion by Whalen, second by Hart. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. On to our, get my agenda back. Economic strategic planning focus areas. I thought it was interesting. that Planning and development gets to have 3 of them. That's okay.
You guys are just that good.
That must be. Mr. Helms, if you want to make any comments right now, I would allow you to do that, sir.
Well, I believe Whalen, Mr. Hart, Mrs. Baker, myself, Georgia, Andrea, were all part of the strategic planning sessions that we did earlier this year. And I believe the group divided these up and put them into the oversight committees. So We have key strategies for each of the three: economic development, accessible transportation, reliable communication, and then of course, progress measures. I don't have the list of who wanted to be on each committee. George has got that. What I guess I'm envisioning tonight, since this subcommittee would report back to planning and development, is to try to decide timing of when to meet to discuss the key strategies. And ultimately, my goal was to craft a strategic plan to use as a guide for budgeting in the future, not necessarily for 2025, since it's new. That might be a little aggressive, but at least for 2026. Who's on economic development?
Economic development is Mr. Hart, Luann Hayes, and Mr. Whitman.
Accessible transportation,
Mr. Hart, Mr. Modero, and Mr. Copley.
communication.
Mr. Jogerst, Mr. Modero, Mr. Whitman, Mr. Copley.
So basically, since these three areas will report back to planning and development, maybe the better way to do this would be what your expectations as a committee would be as it comes to these three items. Then we can reach out to all the members of each committee and ask them, we can give a couple of dates and see what works and have them meet.
We need to pick some dates.
I don't know that you need to pick some dates. I think what we'll do is we'll try to come up with some and reach out to members of each and see if it works that way. But again, just to see as an oversight committee, what your expectations are for economic development, accessible transportation, and reliable communication. That way, give them a guide of sorts to work towards. But again, we do have the key strategies and progress measures too. So if you agree with the strategies and the measures, we can just go with those. But this is the opportunity for oversight to kind of navigate that and describe what you would like it to look like.
Now, there'll be members that are on these, as I understand it, that are not on P and D, and vice versa. So there'll be, I guess we'll just all do it.
Basically, it's a subcommittee.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll try to pick 2 or 3 days, time, see if we can get everybody together.
There's a couple of department heads that signed up for, Beth signed up for economic development, Stephanie Helms for reliable communication, and Dale for accessible transportation.
And those are just advisory subcommittees that report to the committee, right?
So in this case tonight, again, discuss economic development, what you'd like to see, accessible transportation, reliable communication. You don't have to recreate the wheel because we pretty much did that already when we had the strategic plan. So just if there's anything that you'd like to see different or more of, you can give that directive to Georgia and get that out to the committee when they meet.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Gotcha.
Mr. Frick.
one of the things that strikes me, and at least 2 of the 3 of these, we've already got an organization that's working pretty hard on both of those fronts between the comms piece and the economic development piece. It seems like there should be some coordination effort there.
And I think if you look at the key strategies, they're included there.
Okay, right.
But I wonder, are you saying perhaps
Well, I don't-
someone from
I guess-
there should be on the,
Or I just want to make sure there's not a redundant effort. Doing something over here and they're already working on something. It makes sense to reinvent the wheel. That's all I'm saying. I don't know if it means somebody from their organization should be on these. Or
Sure, you could
do we have
invite, you could probably invite Andrea, and if she can make it, she'll probably be there. That's the thing to remember with GFP or any other economic development. We're still deciding the priorities. You're enlisting GFP and the other organizations to carry out those priorities. So it doesn't mean that you can't, let me back up. It doesn't mean that you just have GFP do whatever they want to do. I mean, if it aligns with what the board wants.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
right?
but you still would want to have,
Their input.
well, yeah, but you still want to, the board should come up with what goals they have for economic development. And then we're employing GFP to carry that out.
One of the comment I would make as I looked at economic development and where we want to be, this is almost specific to us. I felt that we need to include places like Pearl City and Lena and in this discussion with us because they're part of our community.
Yeah.
And we, unless you're involved in those villages within your district, each one of those has a different idea on where their community should be going as well. And that may have an impact on how we look at things too. So I think that that might be, maybe we need, I don't want to add more people to it. More people kind of gets messy, but I just think that we need to find some ways to include some of our villages that have some potential, some don't have much potential, but maybe they have a great idea.
Well, then these areas affect,
These what?
I mean, each one of these three affects our whole county, right?
And that's what our committee's about.
Right.
Well, and I think through the committee members and where their districts are, I think that will resolve part of that. You know, we'll find out where the holes and gaps are. Like, if we're on something together, you know, my area is different than your area, but we'll have your geographical. But it's a good point, Steve.
Are there some directions, some things that you are happy with here? Unhappy with?
I think you just,
Definitely throw it out.
if
I mean, we
they
don't want to reinvent our wheel either.
put some dates together, I think you just need to see what the subs come up. You know, you have measurables for each one of these, you know, they need to figure out how are we gonna measure all these things? How are we gonna interact with, Freeport Partnership to engage in some of these? We let them take the lead in most of some of these areas, or do we Blackhawk Hills on some stuff and them on others, or. But I think, like Mr. Helms mentioned, we need to be clear in how we want to pursue this. And make sure there's a strategy. I think we've laid it out here in the planning process, but now we gotta execute it. We gotta execute the plan.
Yeah, that's precisely it, is the execution. So I think the plan is, I've said this before, I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess nothing's perfect, but I think this plan was really well written and made everybody's input cohesive in here. So I'm very happy with the plan. It's just, as you say, the execution and working out the detail.
We definitely got something to shoot for. How do we get there?
Well, thank God we don't have to do this part. I mean, think about starting without this, you know, that would be a monumental task.
More difficult.
And it's, you know, I think it's great that Greater Freeport Partnership has used the same purveyor of this. It's probably some similarities, at least in the methodology that was used. Same for Freeport, I think, the city. So, you know, great coordination. Anyway.
What do we want to have when we leave here tonight?
A method by which to get people to disseminate to people, hey, here's some options for days and times to meet.
Get the process started.
We're in that wave. And if you see other things within this, you see something that, hey, why didn't we think of that? Or I think that that's important that you bring that back so that we can add it, or at least, as I used to say, roll that corn cob around a little bit. So.
I want to know.
That's right.
Okay. It's a long story. Someday I'll tell you that.
Yeah, please don't.
Oh, no, it's not that kind of, Mark, I want to do that. Okay. I don't see any other old business. I don't see any public comment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done, Mr. Chairman.